Tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks, Nancy. As happened this morning as well, I always feel like I need to temper expectations after you've introduced me. And as I said this morning, we've got to be a bit realistic that I'm just one part of the system. I'll play my part. Nothing changes because we give me a title. It's clearly what we do over the next 2 or 3 years, and I think it's all about how we respond collectively as a country. And I want to thank you for your leadership today. Clearly there's been a lot of work going on, and you've really taken the task diligently, and you've really explored the options available to you. As I said when I left, I was off to talk to another event in Auckland on localism in mental health. And Lester Levy was there speaking about the reforms. And it was great to have the ability to think about how we do change tack from a very centralised approach now to going to look at how we respond regionally and locally. And we need to look about how we have local solutions for local needs. And I spoke at that event a bit like this morning, talking about localities or geography doesn't always have to be how we define localism. For instance, we can think about it potentially in occupation and sector. You think about the construction sector having the highest suicide rate in New Zealand, and they are delivering programs like Mates in Construction, which train up construction workers to go and talk and to deliver suicide prevention programs with other construction workers on the construction site. And when you think about the therapeutic alliance, it is about that relationship where people come together, they trust each other, they have confidence, there's no barriers, and they actually see themselves in that person. And I know I see that where I live in rural North Canterbury as well, because the farmers and the rural people want to talk to other farmers and other rural people. If you think about the programs like Farm Strong, where they train milk tanker drivers in mental health, and you ask, why would you do that? Well, on a farm, if a farmer's having poor mental health, it can quickly translate to animal welfare issues. So if you're the milk tanker drivers driving in once a day, and you start to see the welfare of the animals go down, then potentially that is a red flag. And why I raise that as an example is that when we look around all the communities in New Zealand, there will be nuances and specifics that we need to get into that detail as well to understand how we best connect and how we build that therapeutic alliance so people can get the support they need. And one area clearly in New Zealand is how we support people within ethnic communities, and to understand how we really power them up to respond. And that's what we're doing here today at the inaugural Asian Mental Health Summit. And I suppose people vote with their feet, so clearly having most of you still here means that you found it worthwhile and enjoyable. But let's be very clear, the work hasn't finished, or this isn't just sort of, we've done this, let's move on. This is actually the start of the work, the very initial start. And when you read, first I must say, 10 out of 10 for presentation. Look what I got given. Look at these post-it notes with the stars. Was that you, Nancy?
Oh, no, they did the work.
Oh, okay.
From me for
That's good. Thank you for that. That was brilliant. And clearly from some of the conversations I've just heard over the last hour and a half, there's been a whole lot of work and a lot more detail going on. But it does allow me to already start drill down, maybe thematically, because that's where we'll need to go around understanding the themes that are coming through. And from some of your comments before, it sounds like those themes are starting to generate and resonate. And it's quite heartbreaking though when you read comments like invisibility, lack of visibility and recognition. And with the speaker today, we heard about the Asian population being about 17.3% of New Zealanders. So 1 in 5 Kiwis are part of the Asian community who don't feel visible, who feel invisible for mental health. And that is probably that direct connection with that staggering statistic of 98% suffering stigma and discrimination about openly talking about their mental health needs. And that's what I think will be a key area of focus, because even the recent question around mental health promotion, to think that we are providing a certain amount of mental health promotion in this country, but actually 1 in 5 people cannot connect with it as well. And that is, I suppose, just the maturity of the discussion as we start to understand barriers through other people's minds as we step in their shoes to understand their needs and their wants as well. There was a reference in a couple of these post-it notes about strategy. People have probably heard me speak before, not big on strategy. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be strategic, it just means we've kind of got a lot of strategy already, and sometimes not much comes from that. So I'm not sure necessarily a strategy, but when you think about it strategically anyway, with the high order health reforms, we are passing through legislation a mental health strategy that wasn't there before that will task high order entities. And I think the reason why that's important, and it links to what Karen said earlier, you've got Kia Manawa Noa and other strategies, is we actually need more of an implementation plan now. Because when you read a lot of strategies, they all sound very good, but they don't tell us what's going to happen by when. And I think that's what we need to move towards. So I'm really excited about working on the strategy, which hopefully will be more about a roadmap and an implementation plan where we can follow agreed milestones and timelines as well. But it was mentioned there is a bit of strategic work going on, so you'll have the ability to feed into the mental health bill, and that'll be an important contribution from you, the suicide prevention strategy and the gambling harm strategy as well. So there was a bit of that feedback in line with that around ensuring that you are involved in helping design research within policy and strategy. And I suppose when you hear words like invisibility or lack of visibility, it's about voice, isn't it? We want to give you prioritization and give you voice. In some way we can do that is by putting your voice into some of the strategic documents that we write in that funny place called the Beehive. And then you would link, I think, to that around clearly there was a call for better representation, if I can paraphrase, around Asian lived experience. And I think it is important to us now to think about within the lived experience, especially within the statutory and government services, how we are ensuring there is appropriate Asian lived experience as well, and to raise that profile. Because I think through that we can start destigmatising a lot that people are currently experiencing as well. What was also interesting is in something that the feedback is where you had already come up with, because policy is right, problem definition and then solution, right? And you've come up with some of the problem definition, not knowing how to access was one comment. And then so one said, what we need to do is improve navigation. So you're already coming up with solutions to address that. Improve navigation. There was a reference not only in the post-it notes, but the comment around the one-stop shop. And that might be potentially a way. And actually what might link in around culturally appropriate mental health promotion through the one-stop shop or the portal as well, which then links you into relevant services that you feel will reflect and respond to your need as well. There was, I suppose, when we think about research, clearly we've got to think about what works, yeah? Because in the end, that's the end goal. What does work in your community? And that's what we need to understand. And I get the challenge about funding, because that's the challenge I get daily. And I don't disagree, because ultimately, if you don't have funding, it's all sort of aspiration, isn't it? But I'm definitely not of the view to start off with funding and then work out what you're going to do with funding. because that for me is the wrong way around, and sometimes why we do get in difficulties. For me, it's about what is the outcome you want to achieve, then what services do you need to deliver that, and then what funding do you need to deliver those specific services. And that's a process I'm keen to support you with as well. What came through on the post-it notes and the text that I see, a very long text I got from Nancy. I thought there was a problem at first. I thought, what's going on here? Bing, 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 bing. But no, she was just proactively feeding back to me as well. And culturally appropriate care. And I think that is clearly, not necessarily the end goal, because the end goal is better mental health, but a way of delivering that. And I think it's very important, not to get too far ahead of myself, but if you look at the new Access and Choice program and the 4 streams of it, Access and Choice, Pacifica, Māori, and the 4th one, youth, then at 17.3 of the population, you do wonder where is the potential to maybe pilot an Access and Choice program for the Asian community. And I think that seems to be something that just is quite singing out already, really, isn't it? Which is good. And potentially, I suppose, Auckland would be a good place to pilot that. And Kelly would tell me Asian Family Services is even a better place to pilot that, as my rubber arm gets twisted. Although, I must say, when Jace was talking from Christchurch and spoke about sort of what's with that invite for all the Aucklanders to come down to Christchurch, mate? They're already coming down in droves to buy our affordable houses, so we just need to be mindful of that. All jokes aside, it was good to see Christchurch represent. It's a great hometown, and I'm really keen to catch up and hear what you're doing in Christchurch as well, because people vote with their feet, and even an area where we're reporting sort of high rates of stigma and discrimination, you held that public event and you got 100 people there. That speaks volumes, so well done. And just my final point, there was, it doesn't always need to be new, so there was comments about enhance what already exists. I think that's a fair challenge as well, and partly the kaupapa of today, working with community groups. And so as I started when I opened this morning, I'm firmly of the view that most of the ideas and solutions are already in the sector and the system. We just need to identify, elevate them and back them. And actually, within reason, I think actually there's more provision out there than actually some people actually think. Because quite often, quite rightly, there'll be a tragic story and the media will translate that to people in their living rooms. And if you haven't experienced the system before, you just think, oh, nothing's there. And quite often when I do travel around the country, I see amazing work. So it comes back to that point I also made about the fragmented system joining up from mental health promotion to dealing with people in distress, because that's not necessarily a mental health condition, helplines, telehealth, to then people mild to moderate in primary care, community-based care, and for those in specialist services as well. So look, that was probably a whistle-stop tour of an amazing amount of work that you have done. I'm mindful you've still got plenty of the post-it notes around the walls and the tables as well. And so my understanding, Kelly, what we're going to do is bring all that together, collate all the information, and then we're going to start analysing this and start to put it into somewhat of a roadmap. As I said, this is only the start of the commitment today, and so today the work starts. Like any good counselling sessions, for those who've either provided the counselling or received it, or as we say in mental health, there's a fine line between provider and consumer, which means we often get both, as I do. The real work actually happens outside the counselling sessions, doesn't it? That's the homework, to then come back and report in the counselling session. And I suppose that's what we're going to initiate. Myself and Kelly from Asian Family Services are going to meet regularly to start analysing this data, putting it in a roadmap, and then Kelly or Asian Family Services will be your navigator or connector to come back to this group once we've started to put it in a bit of formation, to say, this is what we heard, is this what you said? And as we start to move through it, test that roadmap about where we're going to go around an Asian mental health roadmap and way forward. How does that sound, Cully?
Amazing.
Brilliant. All good.